Now, Kate Middleton might have married up by choosing to spend her life with the future King of England, but it seems picking a partner from a higher social class is, for many women, a thing of the past. A new study suggests that armed with a better education and higher earning power, women are now marrying for love rather than to better themselves socially. But according to this new report, this is having an adverse impact on social mobility. Jane Death has been looking at modern marriage.
Kate Middleton couldn't have married into a higher class family. But now women her age are more likely to follow Zara's example. She went for a rugby player, Mike Tindall. Royals are always an exception, but for the rest of us, more women are, forgive the expression, marrying down than marrying up. And the left-leaning Institute for Public Policy Research says the change came with women born in 1976. They grew up with the economic means to marry people of the same class or lower. This is the first generation of brides more likely to marry down than marry up into a higher social class. Of women born in 1958, 38% married up. Of those born in 1970, 32% married into a higher class. But for women born between 1976 and 1981 and getting married today, just 16% married someone above them. And more women are finding husbands from lower social classes. Of women born in 1958, 23% did so. Of those born 20 years later, 28% are now marrying a man in a lower class. But the biggest change has been in the number of women choosing someone from the same class, 56% now, compared to 39% 20 years ago. All so different from the post-war years.
Of course, if you really make the right moves, you'll be out in the country and you won't be going to work at all.
The Institute for Public Policy Research says in one way the typing pool as dating agency was a good thing. It broke down class barriers.
Oh, and Mr. Sterling, how are you?
Morning, girls.
To us, Mad Men may look pretty sexist, but in fact, in the 50s, women were massively on the up. All sorts of new jobs were now open to them. And the old stereotype of a secretary marrying her boss was at least proof that social mobility was possible. Whereas those born in 1976 knew the inequality of the 80s when social mobility stalled. So are women now more free to marry who they want, or are they constrained by more rigid class divides?
Our society broadly, because it got more unequal, there seems to be less travelling across class lines. You know, less social mobility up, less fluidity, and it means therefore that in different aspects of our lives we've become more segregated. And it may be that marriage, this sort of marrying people like yourself, is a phenomenon related to that rise in inequality.
And marrying within class is bad, the argument goes, because it means wealth isn't spread around. But many will say gender equality is worth more.
I think we ought to be cheering the fact that women now have other options. We're not still in Jane Austen times, we're not in Mad Men times. Women don't have to marry their boss, they don't have to pick out the richest, most successful, high-earning man to fix their wagon to.
And the married couples we asked said it wasn't about marrying up, down or anywhere in between. It was about love and fate.
If you're lucky enough to fall in love with someone who makes more money and is a different social class, so to speak, then more power to you. But it doesn't usually work that way.
You just go with who you like, don't you? You don't go out with someone because they're higher class or lower class.
Just in pub at the same time. Our paths just crossed, wasn't it? That was it.
Marriage is changing, and so are women's aspirations. That may widen the wealth gap, but society will have to find other ways of boosting social mobility.